Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back, Sober Experience. I hope you guys are having a wonderful life, wonderful day. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share on all podcast platforms, The Sober Experience. And as promised, I told you guys we'll be getting back into doing some more one-on-one interviews with people whose recovery I admire. So we are going to be blessed today. We have another visitor, my good friend Liz. Liz, say hello.
Hello.
All right, beautiful. Liz, first things first, where are you from?
I'm from Brooklyn.
Nice.
About 10 blocks away from here.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, sit a little closer to the mic.
Sure.
Or you can pull the mic closer to you, whatever.
I'll do that. Great.
All right. So what was it like growing up in Brooklyn?
Well, growing up in Brooklyn I just turned 50, which is astounding.
My eyeballs are open. Shockingly, she looks about 40.
Oh, that's good of you to say. And expected.
Yeah. No, I'm not lying. But go ahead.
So I grew up here largely in the 70s and 80s, and I graduated from high school in 1991. It was a very different time in Brooklyn, just not so populated, not so hip. Definitely far more rough than it is now. And just even being over here where we are, it's you didn't walk into Dumbo, which is now a ridiculous place.
Yeah.
But
Did you have siblings?
I do. I have one sister.
Older or younger?
She's older.
Yeah?
Yeah. So we're 2.5 years apart.
Oh, that's not bad.
It's not good. It's not bad. It's what it was. But yeah, it was just a different time, You're
right.
from Brooklyn?
No, I grew up in Rockland County.
Oh, okay.
I've been to Brooklyn 20 years.
Okay. You feel native.
I do?
Yeah.
Oh, man, good. I passed the test.
You passed the test.
No, I mean, look, I grew up in the woods, a $5 and 30 and 40-minute bus ride to Port Authority. My whole life.
Gross place.
Yeah. It was just but it was somewhere else. So how were you in school? I mean, because I know you're a sharp gal.
I'm a sharp gal. I was far more sharp 25 years ago. I like to say I fried my brain in the 90s because I don't really hold on to much data or information at this point, but I'm quick. I was good in school. I called myself B+ without trying. In all walks of life, I was better than average in most areas without too much effort.
Right.
But I didn't feel better than.
What did you feel like?
I felt worse than.
Really?
Yeah. I felt less than.
Surprise. Oh my
surprise.
God, you felt less than.
I felt less than.
Well, listen, I know you've been sober, a long time. So I always ask this question because I feel like I've grown into this answer for myself. Mm-hmm. But I've yet to meet anybody that didn't feel less than, who are addicts or not. When you're a teenager and it's a nuclear bomb and you're trying to even the mean girls don't feel quote unquote they don't feel like they fit in. So what was your response to that?
So I looked like I fit in.
Right.
I presented well. I presented B+. But I just definitely felt things came a natural ease that I probably had when I was 9 years old vanished when I turned 12.
Wow.
And I just spent a lot of time kind of looking around me and trying to figure things out. And my math, my calculation was always, and to this day has been A plus B equals there must be something wrong with me.
Right.
So that's what it felt like.
What about your sister?
So I think she had her own similar experience. And it turns out, many, many, many years later, she is also sober.
Look at that.
And
from the same soil.
from the same soil, exactly, as are some of my cousins on that side of the family. It's definitely like, it presented itself in my family's history. My grandmother didn't start probably actively drinking until she was, like, drinking hard until she was about 60. I didn't start drinking really until I was like 24. And my sister was very different from me. My descent was like fast and furious and ugly and apparent. And I think I was spared that last 10 or 15 years of literal hell that people go through, whereas she didn't really start relying upon alcohol probably until her maybe 35 to 45.
Right.
And just kind of like quietly drinking wine at home and kind of never really moving forward in her life, and not really, just sort of managed anxiety through the use of substance. But it was so much quieter than my sort of dirty, messy, smelly, youth.
Yeah. So how did you hold off for that long before you rang the bell?
Well, I rang the bell. I started ringing the bell when I was about 19.
Yeah.
So I did not use anything,
Not even pot?
nothing, until I was about 19. And I was
Straight edge.
straight edge, right? You asked how well I did
Yeah.
in school. I was like, I did well because I like followed rules. I was
Right.
very committed to being good.
Right.
And then I realized being good doesn't get you. Are we allowed to use profanity on this podcast?
Sure. 4
Doesn't
and
get
5
you
letters.
Shit.
Yeah.
So why don't I like flip the switch here?
Yeah.
And I started smoking pot, and it was like, this is the thing that has been missing from my life.
Right.
And it like returned me to that place where I talked about being 9 and like
The magic.
breathing easy, right? Being a human among humans without that sort of self-doubt, self-loathing, consciousness, right? So it brought me back to that place of being like, oh, I don't care.
Right.
This is amazing. And I loved it. So I used it habitually.
Every day.
Every day, I didn't like this skirt until I spilled bong water on it. It's like,
Right.
until it just became my persona, and I used it and I used it and I used it. And then there
Were
was
you still progressing, like, in your life? Like, it wasn't hindering anything yet?
it wasn't really hindering anything. I was probably about 22 when I was like, oh, okay, weed's amazing. It's the love of my life. It's my first love. It's my everything. But I can amplify this by drinking alcohol.
Mm.
So I started drinking. And then on my 26th birthday, I remember being out, and I started using other substances, right? And
Nose nachos?
indeedy, in fact, I sort of had a head cold this week, and my mother looked at me and she was like, "What? Too much cocaine?" And I was like,
so
"No,
funny.
no, friend." But I remember being 26, and it was my birthday, and I was like using privately,
Mm-hmm.
which was the first time, because up until that point, like, use of coke is just a very social thing. But I was by myself, and I did it, and I looked in the mirror, and what popped into my head was, you've opened a window in your brain that you cannot shut.
Mm.
And I equate that now with like crossing that invisible line. So I just wanted to add more and more and more. So I added any drug that I could. So by the time I was 29, it had been a rough couple of years.
Right.
So I was using whatever I could
Right.
to just have fun, but it wasn't just fun anymore. It was like fun and trouble.
Right.
A lot of trouble.
Yeah. Were you working, or did you finish school? What was going on with that?
So I finished school when I was, I finished school on time.
Right.
But when I finished school, I was like, how does everybody know how to like balance a checkbook? Because that's what they did back in the day.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like a register.
Yeah, there was
right?
pencil and paper.
Yeah. So I'm privately educated my whole life, right? I'm
Right.
given like every opportunity, but I have zero life skills.
Yeah.
I know how to like roll a fat joint.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's how you make friends.
And I know how to like fish it out, right? You walk into the party, you like know
Yeah.
exactly who's holding what, and you like have social skills,
Yeah.
right? But I had a great amount of social skills, but I had very few life skills. So I fell into a career because like somebody gave me a chance at doing something that I was like, this isn't for me. And I like got a temp job working for a company, and because I'm B+ without trying, and I present really well, right?
Yeah.
You wouldn't think I'm a total fuck up. They were like, "You're great." So I never chose a career. I fell into a job that became my career. So it wasn't deliberate. It just was. And I
You took what was there.
yeah. And it's like I was educated enough in that area to know that it was a good fit. But there was no like intention, right? I was never like, this is who I am, this is what I want to do. It was like, I take up some space. I like my goods. This is my primary purpose.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get fucked up, excuse my language, but I also know that there are certain things that are expected of me by society, by my family, by myself, and I have to like at least have a job. And that was probably the most that I could do. And I saw friends like going off and like, meeting investment bankers and, forming relationships. And I was like, nope. And I just made fun of their life choices because I was jealous of their life choices because I couldn't have their life choices because I wasn't making choices. I was just like...
Right. You were being led on a string.
I call myself a mess in a dress.
Yeah.
I was just like... It wasn't that cute, and it wasn't leading me anywhere, really. So I finished school and stuff, but like... I had no life skills, and I really didn't understand how people like went for jobs and like made a resume, and I did those things after a fact, but only because somebody like took pity on me and was like, okay, here, I'll format this for you.
Right.
Just tell me what you did, and I'll be like, okay, this is what I did. Kind of a waste of space.
That's funny.
I don't know, not so funny.
Yeah, but if you think about it, I mean, we're really looking back, and you say you lower your expectations to meet your using or drinking, whatever. I used to make this backhanded joke that would say, know what kind of women I like? The kind that like me. So it's like similar like with the job thing, like, hey, I guess you'll take me. I guess I'll have you.
Totally.
And then like, like you're saying, without the intention, without that analysis of myself, like this is what I want to do to be happy, like whatever, you're like, oh shit, you're going to pay me? I'll show up. All right, I'm in.
I mean, I barely showed up too. Like I was a terrible worker.
You were tumbling down that hole.
Yeah, I was not a good worker. Like my first... I don't know, the first job that I started having consequences with was this smaller company, and it was actually my first two amends, really, to those two bosses. I stole money because I didn't make any money, right? And I didn't know how to manage money, and I just used it to, like, go out.
Right.
That I used to just take money from the petty cash box because that was my responsibility to, like, manage it.
That's so funny.
And so I was dignified about it in a way that I put in, like, an I owe you $10 or, like, I owe you $20.
No way.
But then I didn't necessarily, like, pay it back.
Right.
And then I probably threw out those I owe you slips here and there. But this was, again, a different time. Like,
Yeah.
it was, before Y2K. Sorry, I just have to cough. Sorry.
No, it's okay. You can cough. Yeah, people, it's the young folks, they don't even know what Y2K is.
Y2K.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then, as you're going along and your friends are moving on to different areas of life, is your family looking at you like, Liz, what the fuck is going on? Or are you like kind of hiding in between, like,
I'm stealth.
Yeah.
So I'd be at my parents', right? And I would drink like white wine in a mug at 10 in the morning with like, I'd smoke weed, whatever. And I'd just listen to music, right, on my headphones. And it was like that yellow Sony Walkman. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Yeah. So that was pretty big. So I just sort of stayed out of the way. Like, they didn't really know. Things started to unravel a little bit here and there, but it really wasn't until the day before I came into AA, I admitted to my mother that I had a problem with alcohol. They really had no big idea. My sister was concerned because I would say, "Oh, I'll come by," and then I'd be at the bar, and then there like drugs would get involved, and I'd call her and be like, "I'll be there in 20 minutes," and then like 2 hours would go by, and she'd just be like, "Where are you? Like, where are you? I'm coming to get you." And she happened to have had a boyfriend at the time who was a former narcotics officer, and he had like the best weed I'd ever smoked in my life.
Surprise.
I know. I was like, don't get rid of that guy. I was like, he's perfect.
That's so funny.
So she had a clue, but no, I kept everything pretty like compartmentalized, and I tried not to let my worlds collide. But it was kind of obvious after a certain time that like.
So when did they start crashing into each other where you were like, oh my God, this is like swallowing me?
I think kind of after that 26th birthday, things started like not getting great. And it was kind of a quick decline. And I started doing things like going out with people I didn't know. Like, I loved going out alone sometimes, like being out at the bar, because I am very social and I know how to chameleon fit in with like just about anybody. So I'd just like make a crew for the night, and that's what I did on the nights where I didn't want to have to deal with anybody. And then on the other nights, I was with my friends, but yeah, I mean, so much of it is like so foggy. Like, there are certain nights that I remember, but one thing I will say is like, I picked friends who were like me.
Right.
I picked friends who liked to party. And I had this one friend, we worked together, and every day after work, I'd go over to her apartment and we'd sit on her couch and we'd get high and we'd be dumb. And then her husband would come home after work. And like night after night, he must have just been like, what is this chick doing on my couch? Like, could she
the fact that like a grown-up married person is like, yeah, that's so funny. I thought you were going to say like her roommate would come home. Like, no.
I was like neither grown up nor married at the time.
Yeah.
But
that's what I mean. That it's just like, if you think about it now, like, oh, maybe this girl's married and she's hanging out with you.
She's hanging out with me, and she hung out with other people too. But like, this person doesn't have a life that's unmanageable.
Right.
Right? This person can do that stuff without screwing up everything.
Yeah.
And that's not me, because when I take it in, there's a devious human being who likes to surface their head and who wants anything and everything.
Yeah. Do you think that person is always there, and then once you give it authority, it's like, okay, now it's my turn?
I'll say this. I think it's a facet of who I am, a facet of my brain.
Of your personality.
Yes, but I will say, since having been sober, I've never cheated, which was my MO when I was out there.
Sure.
It's like, I want what you have. I don't care. I need attention. I need affirmation. I need to fill the like God-sized hole with attention.
I need.
Exactly. It was all about gimme, 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 gimme.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that person, it's like if I think about my brain as a set of quadrants, right? I guess you could say there's the B+ without trying.
Right.
There's the good, like that 9-year-old self, right?
Right.
That I could try to, like that, boy, do I try to find that person unsuccessfully, routinely. Then there's the deviant. And then there's probably just like another quadrant that is the thinking, right? The thinking brain, which is like the true beast of them all.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that, like, you know, what we were talking about before the show, when I was saying that I know myself better than I've ever known myself. And it is not the world that I fear. I'm not scared of really anybody or anything except for me. Because I know that it doesn't matter how long I've been sober, how many tens of thousands of meetings I've been to, how many genuine loving connections that I have, like we have right now, left unchecked, that little boy's going to come out and play. Mm-hmm. But now he's got like a big boy wallet, you know, and yeah, he's going to be like, didn't you want to be Axl Rose? Like, he's going to say that to me, and I'm going to be like, fucking yeah.
I didn't think it would be Axl Rose, quite honestly.
Yeah, like...
I thought it would be somebody else.
He'll be whomever. Didn't you want to be Rick Flair? Somebody. Hulk Hogan. Didn't you want to matter?
Oh, sure.
That's what he'll say to me,
Yeah.
and then I'll say, yeah. He's like... And then I'll just start burning everything down before I even drink.
Yeah.
That's my whole thing.
No, I made a good mess without drinking.
Yeah.
Trust me. Yeah.
So when did you say, okay, this is enough, I got to stop?
I had no intention of stopping. I got caught doing the stuff that I did every time I drank.
Right.
But this time I was in a relationship with somebody where I felt devastated that I had hurt them so badly. And
meanwhile, you'd been hurting people for a long time.
Sure, I'd been
And
hurting
then-
this person, but without them knowing.
Right.
Right? So this
Yeah.
time I got caught.
Yeah.
And it was enough. It was enough. It was enough to like get me to be open to the idea that there was something wrong. I had
Yeah.
no idea that alcohol and drugs were a problem. None. Dummy. All the private education one could want. No life skills, no self-awareness, no clue.
That's part of the disease, though, that we're like the last to know. Almost anything,
Dummies.
you know? We're like the last to know, like, oh my God, you know? And then like you hurt this person, and I know what that's like. It's not easy to live with.
Yeah, but I was like quick to manipulate the situation real quick.
Sure.
You know, I'll take sober responsibility. I wrote some letter. It was all nonsense.
Yeah.
But it got me in. And the greatest gift of it all is that the person who I had been so crappy to is my chosen family now.
Yeah.
They're in my life in the most substantial and meaningful way. Our children are as close to brothers as, you know, we both have one child, so
Right.
we like kind of hoist those two boys on top of each other.
That's funny.
But we just went on vacation for my 50th birthday. We're family,
Oh,
right?
it's sick.
It is sick. It is sick. Because we were like meant to be in each other's lives.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. So then What do you say? I need help in those moments?
In that moment,
Yeah.
did I say I needed help? I think I was willing to admit that I had created a total shitstorm. And a therapist that I'd been with, Dr. Wendy G.
Shout out Wendy G.
Shout out Wendy G.
Sounds like a rapper.
She's amazing. Who I just hung up the phone on at 4 o'clock being like, I don't know, can we just cut this early?
That's so funny.
She got me into an outpatient rehab program.
Wow.
And I started going to AA.
Right away?
Am I allowed to talk about that?
You can talk about whatever you want. But hang on one second. I'm just going to... This thing is blowing right in my eye. We have the AC on. Hang on.
It's summer in the city.
Okay. Yeah, so you went... She got you into outpatient.
Mm-hmm.
And for the people who don't know, what is outpatient? Explain that.
Outpatient rehab was kind of a program that I went to. I didn't sleep there or anything, but I went during the day, I think 3 times a week, to a treatment program for people who had substance abuse issues, some of whom wanted to be there, some of whom were probably mandated to be there. And so it wasn't necessarily something that I could continue with long term because I committed to being sober through a 12-step program.
Yeah.
And it was free.
Yeah. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So when you make that commitment to yourself, like, okay, I'm gonna get sober,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's like a meteor hitting the earth.
It was bananas. And, you know, I've been through some stuff in recovery over the years, and nothing was as hard as getting sober.
Yeah.
Nothing I've been through in my life has been as hard as that. And I was just chit-chatting with a young lady yesterday who had a breakup, and I was like...
I know, it's so hard to not be cavalier.
Yeah. No, it is. It is. Trust me, I've been through it. But again, when I reflect back on what has been the most challenging, pivotal process in my life, it was kind of that first 90 days and that first year and then the second year and then getting through the stuff at 12 years and then, you know, at 17 years. Like, just things happen. And but I look back and I say, like, nothing was as, like, I haven't been, you're sort of just like slapped in the face with life.
Yeah.
Right? You're like, oh shit, I'm awake, you know? Yeah, like a meteor, you said.
Yeah, like I think about that. It's you know, because now you're like sober, and now there are people who get sober at our age.
You're not my age.
I'm a little bit younger than you.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't
age yourself.
All right, 44. But there are people who come in their 40s or 50s, and they already have the life part almost on autopilot. They have a career, they have a house, or they have whatever they have. It's already on autopilot, and they just have to get sober. When you're a younger person and you get sober, you're like, not only do I have to get sober, now I have to build a life with unadulterated life coming in. There's no barrier. You're like, dude, I'm going to have to feel all of these feelings while I'm building my sort of autopilot system.
About that, we could take a moment on this one. So
yeah, whatever you want.
This was after the dust settled a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. You get a year, you're like, okay, now I gotta, well, at least for me, I was like, now I gotta get serious.
Right.
I gotta make up for lost time. Those chicks who married those investment bankers knew what they were doing. Here I am being like, now I gotta Now I got to get the guy. Now I got to have the baby. Now I got to have the career. Now I got to do the stuff. Now I got to, now I got to. Okay?
Right.
That was my higher power. My like motivation to achieve things and attain things and prove things was all ego-driven, all fear-based, and it didn't make for like a lightness of being.
Yeah.
Right? So I got the things, but then I stood to lose all the things because I didn't know how to enjoy life. I didn't know how to enjoy much because it was still all like me.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn the hard way that it's apparently not all about me.
Yeah.
And that like being in the middle of recovery is actually the thing that affords me some form of levity about myself. And I really need that, right? Because then I can be like fun, and I can be joyful, and I can be a mom who's not thinking about 18,000 things while I'm just supposed to be sitting there with my kid,
Yeah. How old is the kid?
He's 9.
Oh, my, it's magic.
It's the best ever.
At 9 years old, forget it.
I just told him actually that I was coming here to talk to someone about not drinking wine.
It's so funny.
He knows now, but I didn't mention it until like this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had a little bit of the opposite, where when I got sober, I had already acquired, minus the house, I acquired all the external. So I knew that the external was not going to take me out. Mm-hmm. But then I had to deal with losing all of that and then rebuilding, because the things that I had when I got here was all, again, attached to ego, whatever, blah, 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 acquisition. Mm-hmm. But it was 98.8% ill-begotten gains, where I was using all of those things, all of the tools that we need to survive, like what you were saying, like survive at a high school, or in your case, like mid-20s party, to your advantage. You have that sonar, like, oh, blah, 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 blah. Like, that's how I was in life. And I was like, so I was able to do all those things so that way, but then I had to deal with giving them up one at a time. When I got here, I was 24 years old. I was in good shape. I was 24 years old. I was in good shape. I joke about it was like a lot of hair ago. Mm-hmm. I was making like $200,000 a year. I was like working on telephone on Wall Street, doing the whole shit. So like, and it took me 2 years of recovery to even give that up. Mm-hmm. But the business that I had at that point was big enough that I didn't have to do anything. It just wound itself into the ground. And then I went from doing that to living on 16th Street in the brownstone in Park Slope with brand new cars and kids in summer camp, the whole shit. I went from that to, $10 an hour, working on weekends, being a dispatcher for Big Apple car service. So
Old
like,
school.
right. But and then it took some time for me to learn that I can still use those skills for the right way now in order to help people, in the sense of, because I, like you, am a chameleon, manipulator, whatever, I can smell a wounded animal. Like you can be like, oh, there's a little bit of low self-esteem in that person, in that like whatever. But now I go and I try and help that, where like it used to be like, oh, I can get whatever I can out of this person and make them feel good for 11 minutes, you know? And meanwhile, one of those days you look at that person in the eyes that you had, that you're just like, yeah, I hurt that. The person was already wounded and I just kicked them, or I've been kicking them and now they know, you know, and then it's hard to live that life. You know, you'll have to drink, you'll have to drug. And then when that's over, it's hard to do that. And then I had to let some of that stuff go too. You know, so I understand you get sober and you're like, you know what, I got to play catch up and whatever, not all you like freaking, what do they call it? Oppression, gender, blah, blah, blah. But you're also like a woman. So there's that added pressure, like, I'm going to need to get married. I got to have a baby. I got to, you know, you have to check all those boxes, where like a guy doesn't have to check those boxes.
Those boxes, like, don't quit for the ladies. I'm sorry.
No, I know.
I'm going to try to take my shirt
Go ahead,
off.
to do it.
It's just an overlayer.
It's an overlayer. No, she's keeping clothing on.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah. So then, like, as you're staying sober, and then you're building a life, and you're doing the acquisitional stuff, you're saying it still left you feeling empty, or were you staying busy enough that the emptiness didn't show up yet?
I tried to keep, every time, you know, I'd acquire something, it was like on to the next thing, on to the next thing. So it was, you know, attaining a certain physical ideal, right? So, okay, now I'm supposed to be fine, right? I'm like this tiny little thing. Now I'm supposed to be like light in my mind, but I wasn't.
Right.
It just made it worse. And
did you ask yourself why it wasn't working?
no, I never bothered to ask myself why. I never bothered to ask myself any of those questions. I never bothered to say like, oh, maybe there's something to prayer and meditation. You know your whale?
Yeah.
Okay. I would look at that and be like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means. And I did a lot of like white knuckling life and figuring it out and banging my head against a wall and harming the people around me with the ire and like the exhaust fumes of someone whose like self-will run riot was polluting everyone else around me.
Right.
But I couldn't even see that that was a problem because I was so self-obsessed that I was angry with them for not fixing my problem.
Yeah.
So.
When there was no God.
None.
Yeah. So because of people that don't tell you a couple of three things. My whale says God believes in me because I don't always believe in myself. So if God believes in me, who the fuck am I to not, you know, who am I to not?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why that's on my whale. You know, it's a reminder to myself and my buddy TJ, crazy ass TJ, he saved that spot next to the clock. He's like, in case you ever want to leave the meeting early.
So good.
So he's like, yeah, because like, you know. Yeah, so then how did you, so now you're accumulating emotional bottoms in recovery.
Yeah.
Those are the real ones.
They're brutal.
Yeah, because they're unadulterated.
Brutal.
Yeah. And how do you start to wake up from that?
Well, I don't just, you know what they say, right? It's like, I'm just going to try to remember this part of the literature. But it's basically like, we don't just come here because, like, we're doing something esteemable, right? We're not like, oh, I'm just going to go, like, do this thing and get sober, right? I get like my face slammed in the sidewalk and like I'm bleeding and I'm like, no, but I got it.
Yeah.
And I get like hoisted into this thing and I'm just like thrown into the water and I'm just like going with the tides because I have no more fight left in me. And what ended up happening was that I got faced with a situation where I was just like, I've fucked up my life so hardcore and I've hurt the person that I'm supposed to be like the kindest to by being so rigid and angry and frustrated and full of fear. Just, they had enough. And I kind of just needed to get to that place of being like, oh, now I've done it again. I've hurt another person. They are not tolerating this anymore, right? Just like that person in the very beginning.
Right.
They're not going to tolerate this anymore.
And you don't have drugs and alcohol to blame it on.
Exactly. I just have my like disease or like mental illness that is so self-destructive that it doesn't even like have a place in my life anymore. It's like, I think it's finally been like subdued quite a bit by being back in the middle that I don't want for pain anymore. I like want for joy, you know? So what happened was, I just finally had to surrender to the fact that my way didn't work. I had caused harm for somebody else and that I was like just crying on Prospect Park West and I ran into somebody from the program.
Were you still going to meetings this whole time or were you dry?
I was pretty dry. I would go once a week, once every 3 weeks, have a commitment, but like not be part of, not do any fellowship, not sponsor. It was not good.
You were not in the herd.
I was not in the herd. I was like,
oh, you're not in the rooms. You're in the halls. Somebody said that the other day. I laughed.
I was like so barely. True. I was like barely in the building.
Man.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. So,
no, I know because I love you so much, and I could feel your pain.
Yeah, it was awful, and
people don't understand. They think alcoholism is drinking, doing drugs. Like no, untreated alcoholism, and you have to treat it with alcohol and drugs or this other stuff the way that we live. Otherwise, it's the fact that alcohol and drugs is not the problem. The problem is we cannot handle life sober. That's the problem. We are ineffective and we make very poor choices.
Yeah, for real. So
with dire consequences that we don't even know until you're walking back and forth on the side, on the park side, freaking, you know.
It's like I told you, right? It's like I didn't know drugs and alcohol were the problem, right? I didn't know it was a problem. It's like I didn't know that I had like really harmed somebody else continually over and over and over again with my untreated alcoholism. And I bumped into this young lady and she asked me to sponsor her. And I'm sitting there crying, being like, you do not want this. You do not want what I have.
Maybe she'll sponsor you.
Yeah. But basically what ended up happening was we started meeting up, and I say that I stayed sober on the fumes of her recovery.
Right. Initially.
She got me back in.
Oh, it's beautiful.
She got me back in, and now I'm so in, it's astounding to me.
Yeah.
I'm so in the middle. I'm sponsoring a bunch of people. Good luck to them. And basically, what I can offer is like, this is how not to do it. You do not need to suffer. Stay in the middle. Go have your baby. Beautiful. This baby is the best thing that ever happened in your life.
Bring it to the meeting.
Exactly. Come to this women's meeting where they allow children. Like, it's not something to stray from. It's just not.
It's so, you know, again, to reiterate what we were talking about before, is that like my sponsor now, he always reminds me, we have like this gravitational pull that pulls us away. And sometimes it's a yank. Like a yank is like a new relationship. It's a yank. And then sometimes it's a little bit. And then next thing you know, you're out there in the cold. And even when people are coming to help you, you're like, nah, I'm fucking good.
Totally. It's
Yeah.
the money. It's the job. It's the guy. It's the
Look at my kid.
Totally.
Blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, all of that thing. And, you know, it's devastating, you know, because none of it matters. None of it. And then you don't know that none of it matters until you get to a point where all of a sudden none of it matters. You know, and you don't even realize, I didn't even realize it myself until like I thought I had everything figured out. And, you know, I had 10 years of recovery and I met my fiance. And so for 10 years, or almost 10 years, it was just myself and my son. So in my mind, I'm crystal clear, sober, whatever, because there's nobody else around to even bounce an idea off of, right? And then I meet her, and we get together, and, you know, it's like, you know, initial sparks flying, like the whole thing, right? And then we move in after like a year, and within 6 months, she was already ready to leave. And I was like, I didn't know how, I'm not going to say how sick I was, but I didn't know how much more I needed to grow until there was somebody standing next to me that was not like a dependent, that I was just like, you know, picking on.
Yeah.
Straight up. I was picking on them.
You have no idea.
Oh, I do. You're
picked.
my sober assistant.
I
I'm the sheriff. You're the sheriff's assistant.
Oh my God. How's this?
Yeah.
I'm the sheriff.
Yeah.
You're the sheriff's assistant.
I'll be the deputy. You be the sheriff. Perfect. No, I'm showing up with all of my attitudes and my expectations.
She's a beast.
And I'm like, you know, yeah, ashamed.
I was so toxic. You have no idea.
Right. I don't, because I was that person too. Where like now I look back and I'm like ashamed.
Me too.
And to the point where I'm grateful, you know, I'm getting married a week from today.
No.
Yeah.
Same
a week
fiance.
from today. Same one.
She's stuck with it.
Bro, I put a ring on her finger 8 years ago.
Wild.
And it's taken this long for her to be like, yeah, I'm ready now.
Funny story.
I'm waiting.
So, you know, I fucked it up with my husband, but so we work through things, blah, 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 blah. And part of me has to admit this, and I can't believe I'm admitting it in a public forum. But, you know, I had to ask myself the question of like, are you committed to not losing, or are you committed to not losing him?
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like the sheriff and the deputy and like, you know, all of the above. But it's like what we were talking about before. Like, what is my intention? Is my intention to win? Or is my intention to make this right with this other person that I have like really not been cool to for a very long time?
Right.
Sometimes I think that my motivation is to win. And then finally over time, it's been like, oh my God, like this person is the sweetest. And he was such an easy target because I could get away with it until I couldn't. But I recently just put my wedding ring back on because I feel like we are committed to each other again in a way that feels very honest. And even me just saying this, it's very hard to trust, right? And it's very hard to be vulnerable. And I also didn't want to wear it for a really long time because it was something that said to me, you're okay because you have this thing, right? Because you're worthy because somebody chose you. It's like, God believes in me, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then I know that my growth turned from, this was my attitude, was like, wow, what would they do without me? Who would they be? They're lucky I'm around. And halfway through our relationship, maybe the third or fourth year, and listen, she's not fucking Mary Poppins, you know? You know? But she's also a human. But then it turned this corner to being like, wow, I'm grateful for the opportunity to earn back that trust. And that, you know, I would always say, and people who listen already know what I'm going to say, ring up the bell. I would always say that, like, I was better at life than she was, but she's a better human than I am. I could never have tolerated me.
100%. That's
Like,
a really good way to put it.
Yeah. And then now it's like she introduced me to myself in ways that, like you said, the fear of really hurting, continuously hurting, but losing somebody like that, you're like, dude, that's who I am?
I'm a piece of shit.
And with 10 years of sobriety, this is who I am?
That's who I was.
That I'm like, you know, I'm over here with the great I am, and I'm going on speaking commitments, and people are the whole, you know, and I'm just like, bro, you know, and you know, and I went into, it would be like this. We'd go into couples therapy, and somehow, like, she would swim away, and I'd be there. Because the therapist would be like, oh, you need to stay, motherfucker. Like, you know, and that kind of stuff. And, but the one thing I have to say, and this is not, I'm not saying this, whoever your husband is, he is lucky to have you. You guys are lucky and grateful to have each other. But, you know, one of the ways that I've learned about myself so much during that time when I was really, you know, when I stepped to her and I said, and this is maybe a shitty way of saying sorry for the 100,000th time that I said sorry, but I was like, the truth of the matter is that the way that I treated you is the way I treated everybody. And it wasn't personal to you. And I didn't even know that I was treating everybody like that because they were just tolerating it. And it makes it all the way wrong on a much grander scale. But I want you to know that you're an amazing, beautiful human, and it's not because of you. If there was another person standing there, they would have got the same shit.
Exactly.
And to know that and to give that to somebody else, to be like, listen, you are not a piece of shit, and you're not stupid. Like, I'd be like, what are you, fucking stupid? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that was the truth, is that I was treating everybody that way.
Yeah, me too.
You know?
Me too.
Yeah.
But I will say also that ability to be so biting and like scathing to another human being is how I talk to myself, right? So now here I am with like a little bit of a spiritual experience as of being back in the, I would say, like, way in the middle of the herd. You know, if I'm kind to myself and give myself a break, I'm kind to others. Yeah. And when I'm intolerant of myself, I'm intolerant of others. So that's pretty recent. And it's taken me this long to be like, oh, just chillax, sister.
Yeah.
Easy does it.
Give yourself a little break.
Totally. Pick up the feather.
Yeah, I know. All those like silly things. But you don't, you know, I have to say this, is that without AA, without the 12 steps, or if you go to NA or any of those 12 steps program, without therapy, without asking for help, even with other people who have screwed up the way that we've screwed up, if it's impossible for somebody to turn this corner and figure it all out on their own. They'd be on the third divorce and it's still that bitch's fault.
Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
And I'm just like, but like, dog, like, you know, like, but without, because that's what the recovery program, it's a roadmap, you know, to say no. Like you were naming all these things and then you cut right to the bottom. It was all fear-based. Meanwhile, fear was masquerading as all I need. Fear was masquerading as a house, as a wife, as a mother, as a career, as a bar, and look at my body, and all these things. But at the bottom of that was just all fear.
Totally.
And you kicking your own ass in between your ears.
The worst.
Yeah.
And and I'm not sure how much time we have, but like I just remember every day I'd come home from work being like, you're going to be nice, 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 you're going to be nice. And I'd walk in the door, I'd be like, why are the windows closed? You know, it's like I couldn't, there was no pause, there was no ability to not act outwardly.
Yeah.
And now I woke up one morning at like 4:30 in the morning and I like looked at the window and I was like, it's so hot in here. Why is it only open 1.5 inches?
Yeah.
A normal human being would get up and open the window. That was the second day in a row I'd asked myself that question.
Yeah.
And then I got up and I opened the window. It's like
Evolution.
but it took 2 days, you know, but I can like see that now and have like humor about it. Because if I'm not a little bit like humorous about it or like light about it, then I'm just like beating
you're
myself
gonna
up
burn
again.
yourself up at the stake.
And I'm not even interested in that. I did that my whole life. I'm done with it. It's like that math, right? Maybe this is a nice way to tie it up, right? Like A plus B equals or something must be wrong with me.
Yeah.
That's not true. That's a bad equation. That's malformed math.
That's the old algebra they don't use anymore. Anyway, Liz, look, it was a pleasure having you on. I got to know you today in a way that I didn't know you before, which is beautiful.
Oh, congratulations on your wedding.
I know. It's like,
I'm so pumped.
it's going to be fucking epic.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
We're going to turn this noise off and I'm going to hear all about it.
Yeah. All right, guys, don't forget, like and subscribe, share with all your pals, even people you don't like. If you want to fuck with them, you can send them the stuff if you think they need to stop drinking. The Sober Experience, Apple Podcast, Spotify, on all platforms. We'll see you on the other side. Peace.
Peace.